analyze our scenario right now. What does it say? It says you need to get 64 subnets out of 172.16.00/16 to fully address your site. I need to get 64 subnets. So 64 different broadcast domains, 64 different local area networks, 64 different independently unique addressed networks. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by manipulating the subnet mask. So right now, we have the 172.16.00/16 network. And this /16 network is one large network, as you can see here. And it's called a classful network because we're using the default Class B address of 172.16.00 with its default subnet mask, meaning we have not modified this in any way, shape, or form. So it's classful. It's unsubnetted. But let's see what happens if we start manipulating that subnet mask. So I want to take that /16 subnet mask that we see here, and I want to change it to a /17. Folks, what just happened? What just happened? Yeah, we broke it in half, didn't we? We broke it into two equal parts. So we went from 1 to 2 networks just by changing the subnet mask to a /17 from a /16. Let's look at that again. /16, /17. So just by manipulating that subnet mask, I had the ability to break up that one large network into two different subnets, two different networks. And we can see here it's now classified as a classless network. So what does classless mean? Classless means I am no longer using my default subnet mask with my class of address. So are we still a Class B address here? Well, 172 is a Class B IP address. If you recall, Class A, the first octet is from 1 to 126. We can't use 0, can't use 127 for our host addresses. Although 127 falls within the Class A range, you can't use it because it's for loopback testing. So when it comes to our IPv4 addressing for hosts, 1 to 126 for Class A. Class B is 128 to 191. And then Class C is 192 to 224, or 223, pardon me, in the very first octet. So I'm a Class B still at 172, but I've changed the subnet mask to a /17, which is not its default. The default for Class B would be /16, so we are now called classless. We have lost our class. We have lost our class, and that's fine. It's fine. In today's day and age, being classless is fine. I'm classless. I'm void of class, and you might want to be classless too. All right. So let's see what happens now if we change the subnet mask again. I want to go to a /18. And when we go to /18, how many networks do we have now? How many subnets do we have? How many smaller pieces of the pie do we have compared to our original network? Well, our original network is one large network, and now we have how many? 4 by manipulating the subnet mask in this case. Let's go ahead and go to /19 now. We go to /19, we can see that there's 8. Let's manipulate it again and go to a /21 or /20 subnet mask, and we have 16. And then /21, we have 32. Then we have a /22, and we have 64. And we can keep going, folks. We can keep going with /23. What do we have? We have 128. And even more. We can go /24, 25, 26, 27, 28. And that's just going to keep creating more and more subnets. So every time we manipulate the subnet mask, meaning we make it longer, so we went from 16 to 17 to 18 to 19, making it longer, that subnet mask, we get more subnets. But I want you to go back here, and I want you to see we have 1. And then we have 2. And then we have 4. And then we have 8. And then we have 16. And then we have 32. And then we have 64. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024. this numbering progression, what does that remind you of? That's right. If you said, my gosh, Raymond, we're dealing in powers of 2. You're right. We are dealing in powers of 2 here. That's exactly what we're dealing with. So every time we manipulate that subnet mask based on powers of 2, we can ultimately determine how many subnets we're going to end up creating. So in this example here, we need 64 subnets out of our 172.16.0.0 address, that one network. That one network. So what subnet mask do I need in order to accomplish my goal? I'm going to need a /22, because if I change my /16 that we started out with, which is one network, all the way down to a /22, that is going to give me 64 smaller networks that I can now deploy. So I can deploy various subnets, various networks now within that one larger network. So all these smaller ones, I can strategically deploy them throughout my network infrastructure.